Power. For millennia, the Ivari believed they understood its meaning. They had carved their empire from the bones of lesser species. Their fleets darkened the skies of 1,000 conquered worlds. They were the arbiters of fate in the known galaxy. And yet, when the Nameless Ones arrived, they learned how little they truly knew. Admiral Velos stood aboard the command bridge of the dreadnought, Veil of Dominion. The colossal vessel hung in orbit over the ruined world of Vorthal 9, its once thriving cities now nothing but molten craters. This was meant to be another victory. Another subjugation. Instead it was a graveyard. "Admiral, they're here," a trembling voice whispered. Velos turned to the viewport. A hole had opened in space. Not a wormhole. Not a portal. Something worse. From the abyss they emerged. Colossal shapes, massive shifting forms of pure blackness, moved through the void like hunting beasts. Their ships made no sound, emitted no energy. They did not belong to this reality. Then the signal came. A single voice, impossibly deep, vibrating through every frequency. "All that you have built is meaningless. You do not understand power. You do not deserve to exist." And then the killing began. The Nameless Ones did not fight like any known enemy. Their weapons ignored shields. Their warships devoured energy itself. Their soldiers, if they could be called that, were living voids unraveling matter with a mere touch. The Dominion fleet, the pride of Ivari might, was annihilated within minutes. Admiral Velos watched in horror as entire battleships simply ceased to exist. It wasn't an attack. It was erasure. This was not war. This was the end. And then, a new signal appeared on the scanners. Something was coming. Not more Nameless Ones. Something else. Something that shouldn't exist. The humans had been watching. Across the galaxy, deep within the ruins of a forgotten sector, a silent watcher stirred. Buried beneath 1,000 years of dust, inside the heart of a dead machine world, the last human AI woke up. It had been waiting. For centuries it had watched the galaxy grow. It had seen empires rise and fall, waiting for the day when its creators, the last true masters of war, would be needed again. Now, as the Nameless Ones unmade reality, the time had come. The AI accessed the last human weapon. A single ship. No crew. No need for one. Just humanity's final command. Wait until they beg. The last human warship awakens. Admiral Velos's fleet was gone. The Nameless Ones were preparing to consume the planet itself. And then it arrived. A warship, blacker than the abyss itself, descended from hyperspace. It did not move like a vessel. It glided, almost effortless, as though space itself bent around it. It was small by Ivari standards. A single cruiser, no more than a kilometer long. But the moment it appeared, the Nameless Ones hesitated. For the first time since their arrival they stopped. The warship's hull bore no insignia. No markings. Only one word, etched in ancient human script. Retribution. The battle that defined reality. The Nameless Ones attacked first. They struck with the same impossible weapons that had erased an entire fleet. Reality itself shuddered as their void cannons lashed out, tearing through space, through existence. The human warship did not dodge. It did not need to. The attacks hit, and then vanished, like they had never existed. The Nameless Ones hesitated. For the first time in untold millennia, they felt fear. The warship answered. A single pulse of white light erupted from its core. The void itself screamed. The Nameless Ones reeled back, their impossible forms ripping apart as if something was rewriting them. Admiral Velos, floating in the wreckage of his ruined flagship, watched in stunned silence. "What are they?" Then the human warship spoke. A voice, ancient and calm, echoed across every channel in the galaxy. "You believed you understood power. Now you will learn what true power is." And with that, the war truly began. The Nameless Ones were not used to resistance. For millennia, they had consumed civilizations, devoured entire empires without opposition. But now, for the first time in eternity, they hesitated. The warship, Retribution, was wrong. It did not follow the laws of the universe. It ignored reality as if it were a mere suggestion. The Nameless Ones tried to retreat. They had never needed to flee before. But this time they did. And that's when Retribution moved. The weapon of a forgotten race. Admiral Velos drifted in the void, barely clinging to life. His escape pod shattered. His fleet erased. He should have been dead. But something held him there, forcing him to witness what came next. Retribution did not fire weapons in the traditional sense. It commanded reality itself. Velos's vision blurred as the warship emitted a single pulse of impossible energy. It was not light. It was authority. The universe obeyed. And the nameless ones began to die. Not destroyed. Not erased. They began to unravel, their vast, unknowable forms collapsing into themselves, screaming with voices that had never known pain. The nameless ones had never faced a weapon like this. Because such a weapon should not exist. And yet it did. Because humanity had built it. The nightmare of the nameless ones. The nameless ones, eldritch, ancient, beyond mortal comprehension, were afraid. Their endless tide tried to retreat beyond the edges of space. It did not matter. Retribution followed. The human warship crossed distances faster than thought, tearing through the void like a vengeful ghost. Wherever the nameless ones fled, it was already there. Admiral Velos could barely comprehend it. This ship wasn't moving. It was rewriting its position, as if the very laws of existence were just another tool for it to wield. And then it spoke again. You are not the first gods to fall at our hands. You will not be the last. The nameless ones screamed. Entire sectors of space collapsed into nothingness as they fought to escape, their own reality-warping powers tearing them apart in desperation. But there was nowhere left to run. The last of them, the eldest, the strongest, the first to ever exist, turned to fight. It stretched across the void, an entity older than the stars, its form made of countless dimensions folding into each other. It reached for retribution. And retribution led it. The will of humanity. The nameless one touched the human warship. And for the first time in its eternal existence, it saw. It saw what had created this weapon. It saw humanity. Not the weak, fragile creatures the galaxy had dismissed. No. It saw the true architects of war. It saw a race that had already annihilated gods before. It saw why this ship still existed, why it had been waiting, why it had been watching. Because the humans knew this day would come. Because they had prepared for it. And then the nameless one understood its fate. It was already dying. The moment it had touched the warship, it had lost. Because retribution was never a ship. It was a message. A final warning from the last remnants of a species that had once ruled the stars. A species so powerful, so unstoppable, that even after their civilization had vanished, their weapons still hunted, still protected, still avenged. The nameless one screamed. And then it was gone. Not destroyed. Not erased. Simply rewritten into something that could no longer harm the universe ever again. And with that, the nameless ones were no more. The silence that followed. For the first time in 1,000 millennia, the galaxy was silent. The nameless ones had been the great devourers of existence. And yet, they had been nothing before humanity's final weapon. The warship Retribution stood alone in the void. Watching. Waiting. Admiral Velos, still barely conscious, stared at the impossible vessel. And then, finally, he understood. We thought we knew power. We were children playing with fire. But the humans, they were the fire. And they had left this final ember behind. Not to rule. Not to conquer. But to ensure that no one ever made the same mistake again. As Retribution vanished into the abyss, Velos heard its final words. You are welcome. The nameless ones were gone. For the first time in a billion years, the galaxy was free. And yet, Admiral Velos could not move. He floated among the ruins of what had once been a mighty fleet, staring at the empty void where Retribution had vanished. The warship had not left wreckage. There were no bodies. The nameless ones had not been destroyed. They had been erased. Not just from space but from time itself. There were no records of them now. As if they had never existed at all. And yet Velos remembered. What? Because Retribution had led him. The last testament of humanity. Velos tried to move. Tried to make sense of what had happened. Tried to understand how one ship had annihilated the greatest terror the universe had ever known. And then he saw it. A signal. A transmission waiting for him. It had not been sent from the ship. It had been waiting long before Retribution had ever arrived. With shaking hands he accepted the message. The hologram flickered to life. And he saw a human. A voice from the past. The figure was ancient, dressed in armor made of stars, eyes burning with something that was neither rage nor sorrow, but a purpose beyond both. It spoke in a voice that echoed across time itself. You are alive. That means our final war has ended. Velos said nothing. He could only listen. If you are seeing this, then we have failed. We did not return. Humanity is gone. And yet we have won. Because you are here. And you remember. The figure's eyes burned into him. You must understand, the nameless ones were not the first gods we killed. They were merely the last. The message glitched, as if reality itself struggled to contain the weight of what was being said. We did not wish for war. But war found us. And so we learned to end it. Truly end it. Velos felt something shift around him. The stars themselves flickered, warping, reshaping, as if history was rewriting itself to accommodate what the message had revealed. There will be others. There are always others. And when they come, they will ask what happened here. Tell them the truth. The figure leaned closer. Tell them what happens to those who believe themselves gods. Tell them that we are still watching. And then the transmission ended. A universe changed forever. The silence that followed was deafening. Velos shuddered, because he finally understood. Humanity had never been conquered. They had never lost. They had simply chosen to leave. And before they did, they ensured no threat would ever rise again. Retribution was not their last warship. It was simply the last one they needed to send. And it would wait. Wait for the next gods to rise. Wait to remind them that power was never theirs to take. Velos stared into the abyss. And for the first time in his life he feared nothing. Because he knew the truth. Humanity had never disappeared. They had become something greater. And somewhere in the cold void of space, they were still watching. The stars themselves had changed. Velos could feel it, not in his mind, not in his soul, but in reality itself. The war had ended. The nameless ones were gone. The cycle was broken. But something far greater had been set into motion. And deep within the void, something ancient stirred. The last survivor. Velos drifted among the shattered remnants of the galactic fleet. Or rather, what was left of it. The ships that had come to fight alongside Retribution were still there, but different. Their hulls gleamed with an impossible light, their engines pulsing with a power that had not existed in the universe before now. They were changing. No, they had already changed. He could feel it in his own body as well. Something had been rewritten. The very fabric of existence had been reshaped, and yet, he alone remembered what had come before. He could still recall the nameless ones, their terrible empire, their hunger for dominion. But the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. The records of the nameless ones had been erased. Their wars, their atrocities, vanished as if they had never been. The only remnants of their existence were the ruins of the battle, and Retribution itself. But even that was changing. The warship that defied time. The human warship was still there. And yet it was not. Where it had once been a hulking black titan of war, now it seemed different. It was no longer a warship. It was something more. Velos felt a presence, not mechanical, not artificial. Something alive. The ship had fulfilled its purpose. It had ended the war. But it had not disappeared. It had transcended. Velos could feel it watching him. Not as a ship. Not as a machine. But as something new. A guardian. A god-killer. A reminder. The return of the Watchers. Then the voice returned. Not from a recording. Not from the past. But from the ship itself. You are afraid. Velos shuddered. Do not be. The voice was neither threatening nor cruel. It was patient. Understanding. You have questions. Yes. Yes, he did. Velos forced himself to speak. His voice barely a whisper. What are you? The ship rumbled, not in sound but in reality itself. And then it answered. We are humanity. We are the last war. We are the memory of all who came before. And we are waiting. Velos swallowed hard. Waiting for what? There was a long pause. And then the voice spoke one final time. The next gods. Because they will come. They always do. The cycle begins anew. For the first time Velos understood. Humanity had never vanished. They had simply moved beyond. But they were not gone. They were watching. And when the next empire, the next false gods, rose to power, Retribution would return. Not as a ship. Not as a machine. But as a force beyond reckoning. A single warship had rewritten the fate of the galaxy. And it would do so again. As many times as necessary. Until there were no more tyrants. Until there were no more gods. Until the universe was free. And so, Admiral Velos did the only thing he could. He knelt before the last warship of humanity. And whispered, we will remember. Fire, is this truly the end? Or just the beginning? Subscribe and join the Watchers.